Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, depending on when you're actually listening to this presentation. My name is Kelly Smith, and I am a doctoral candidate with Liberty University in Psych Class 700. The purpose of this discussion today is to show how the LOE, or levels of explanation, and autism relate. We're going to define the level of explanation and how it is helpful to autism research and how it applies, describe my research, and then ask ourselves, when it comes to autism research, how is this approach important in finding the truth? Those and other questions will be explained in this presentation. What is the levels of explanation? Well, the level of explanation views psychology and Christianity separate. For example, psychology sticks to its academic levels and Christianity sticks to its spiritual levels. But various levels can be used to explain behavior. This approach is founded on the reductionist principle, which states that human behavior can be understood by dissecting or taking apart and simplifying parts. The best way to comprehend behavior is to carefully examine the components that compose our structures, then use the most easy or basic descriptions to comprehend how they function. The behavior can be explained on three different levels, depending on the levels of explanation: biological explanation, psychological explanation, social and cultural explanation. On the last slide, the lowest level is the biological level. And key terms to describe that level is neurotransmitters in the brain, genetic mutation, and brain chemistry. The middle level is the cognitive and behavioral level, and which is also the psychological level. And the highest level is cultural reasoning, or social and cultural reasoning, referencing to the effect of social groupings. For instance, memory is described as the highest level when we consider how cultural expectations influence what is better remembered and how we recall memory. Now let's look at my research, which is autism. Defined autism has many levels, and there is no single generic or cognitive cause of symptoms defining autism. If we look at the entire word of autism, which is autism spectrum disorder, the word spectrum indicates that autism appears in different forms with varying levels of severity. That means that each individual with autism experiences their own unique strengths, symptoms, and challenges. And as we go through, autism also has levels to the spectrum, just like LOE. Level 1 requires support. Level 1 is also the mildest form of autism, which is referred to as high functioning autism. Surprisingly enough, my middle child has autism, and he has the high functioning autism. So at this level, typically they have more difficulty with communicating with other people. They have difficulty interpreting social cues and body language. And in some cases, people at this level have trouble moving from one task to another, like transitioning, um, and sometimes have trouble with organization and planning skills to making it more difficult for them to accomplish things, in order to make it difficult for them to accomplish things. And that is true in some case. For my son, As long as he is being taught repetitively, he can do the social cues if he sees it enough, or if organizing and planning, he will do those things as long as we have taught him repetitively. And sometimes we have to come back a few months later to remind him again. But that for the most part, that fits him. Level 2 requires substantial report. I do have a second child with autism. He is more moderate to severe, and he falls into this level. So children at this level with ASD will have more obvious issues with verbal and interpersonal communication. They also find it hard to change tasks. Again, the transition. Going on to the next thing. Kids that are diagnosed usually perform repetitive behaviors that can cause problems with functioning in certain situations. Sometimes they pace back and forth or repeat words and phrases over and over again. That is so true. However, my middle child, who is in level 1, though they don't mention it in level 1, he does go back and forth and does a lot of self-talk. Whereas the youngest one repeats everything from TV to social media, computers, individuals. So you have to be careful what you say around him. And they also speak in short sentences and struggle with nonverbal communication. That is true. My little boy will say pizza, chips, bathroom, break, finished. So we're trying to get him to learn 2 words to 3 word sentences, things of that nature. And then the very last level requires very substantial support. This is the most severe from the autism spectrum disorder. Kids at this level experience levels 1 and 2, but at a more severe rate. The problems communicating verbally and non-verbally can result in severe difficulty functioning, dealing with change, and or interacting socially. As we discussed before, biology explanation deals with terms like genetics, brain structure, brain chemistry. When I was doing my research, I came across twin studies in autism. And the twin studies have shown, or did focus on genes, and they showed that if twins share 100% of the DNA and one of the twins has autism, the other twin has a 90% chance of developing autism down the road. They also did a study on the families within these twins and shown that it's not just autism itself that is inheritable, but that relatives have an increased rate of phenotype. And what phenotype is a set of observable characteristics of an individual resulting from the interaction of its genotype with environment. The second we had talked about was the psychological explanation, and the parallel with LOE and autism, first and foremost, is focus. And so with autistic children, their attention span and focus, they can't keep eye contact. You cannot keep their attention, like their focus is completely off. They're easily distracted, other than their healthier counterparts who can keep eye contact and can focus on one project at a time. And it also really has to do with age level as well. So if you're comparing a 16-year-old with a let's say a 3-year-old, the attention span might be similar because that 16-year-old might have the capacity, the brain capacity could be that of a 3-year-old. The other thing is cognition. And one of the questions another question I was looking at is there a single cause for the symptom? And the answer is no, because there are several causes. Each symptom has a cause. So it's not just autism and one cause. It's several symptoms, and each of those symptoms has different causes. And then the last is environmental. And though I know environmental can fall under psychological explanation, it also can fall under social and cultural expectations. When you're dealing with familiar social economics status, you can have education, social economics again status, and psychological well-being, and it can play a role causing stress and anxiety and can make an individual more susceptible to autism, which I found interesting because there are so many different articles and research on where autism comes from because no one knows where autism comes from. Vaccinations, environmental, genetics, the father side, which is genetics. But no one really knows. And so that was interesting to me. That's the first time I heard that maybe anxiety and stress can leave you more susceptible to autism. Never would have crossed my mind. So that is very interesting. In closing, on the basis of what was told to you today, I have argued that autism and levels of explanation go hand in hand. But on the psychological side, both have, in closing, on the basis of what was told to you today, I have argued that autism and levels of explanation go hand in hand. But on the psychological side, both have a biological explanation, a psychological explanation, and a social and cultural explanation. I examined the role genes play and how they can be passed down through the family, how LOE and autism have a psychological explanation when we discuss attention span and cognition, and the last socioeconomic issues that are linked to our culture. If you notice, the side that most resembles levels of explanation are the psychological side, and it does not overlap with Christianity. I didn't find too much research on the levels within that levels and comparison with Christianity levels. What I saw was more of those with disabilities understanding a higher power, and not so much how my research in Christianity correlated on each level. What was found was that it would be proper to study each cause separately in order to provide the right help. And I believe that having separate causes can help to get the proper therapies and treatments needed for those with cognitive challenges. Case in point, my son. And I'll end with this. My son gets OT, gets speech therapy, behavioral therapies, ABA at home. All and he sees a psychiatrist, all to help him better self-soothe, not get, because he has aggression issues, to not be aggressive. We're trying to get the right medicines to help with his aggression. We're trying to help him stay calm because eventually he might have to go into some type of institution that will be able to take care of him better than I can. And so examining the different levels to provide helpful therapies and treatments